Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I would now like to introduce Leader of the Ontario Greens, Mike Schreiner.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to begin today by just offering my sincere condolences to the families, friends, and loved ones of people who tragically lost their lives in yesterday's severe storms across the province. And I just want to offer a sincere thank you to the first responders and the crews who are working so hard to keep people safe, restore power, and clean up after the damage from the storms. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from my living room here in Guelph on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Adirondack peoples, and is currently the Treaty 3 lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and to reaffirm the Green Party's commitment to the truth and reconciliation process, and to express my deep gratitude to Indigenous peoples for what I've learned from Indigenous peoples about how to care for the land, the water, the plants, the animals, and the people who live here. I'm truly honored today to be joined by the leader of the PEI Greens, Peter Bevan-Baker, for today's announcement. I've been just so grateful that Peter's been touring across Ontario this holiday weekend. And Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It's quite literally been my pleasure.
I'd also like to say that on this holiday Monday, many Ontarians are out enjoying the beautiful nature this province has to offer, spending quality time with family and friends in the places they love. But these places that so many people and families love spending time in are under threat. Doug Ford's declared war on nature. He spent the last 4 years systematically dismantling environmental protections and is now trying to pave over the greenbelt, farmland, and wetlands with highways like Highway 413. Mr. Ford thinks that environmental protections are red tape, but Greens know that environmental protections are about protecting the places we love and protecting the nature that protects us from climate-fueled weather events like flooding, storms, and droughts. And that's why today I'm announcing that the Ontario Greens are fully committed to protecting and expanding access to nature and ensuring that we don't pave over the places we love in this province. We will do this by creating 5 new provincial parks and strengthen and fund the ecological and integral role of Ontario's public park system. We will work with Indigenous communities to protect at least 25% of our lands and water in Ontario by 2025 and 30% by 2030. We will double the size of the Greenbelt by creating a Blue Belt. We will strengthen the Greenbelt Act and make new highways through the Greenbelt illegal. And we will restore the landmark Endangered Species Act 2007 and the science-based system for determining species status, recovery, and habitat protection, while eliminating exemptions for industry. Protecting our natural heritage will also enrich biodiversity and protect species at risk. You know, it was unfortunate the previous Liberal government gutted the Endangered Species Act, and the Ford government put the Endangered Species Act at even greater risk with their programs like Pay to Slay and other ways of undermining biodiversity and species protection. Expanding access to nature will help improve people's physical and mental well-being and just overall well-being. Greens are the only party talking about protecting nature and the impacts of the climate emergency in this election. We're the only party taking the climate crisis seriously with new solutions that address the rising cost of living and set our economy up to create new careers and better jobs for people. We are fully committed to protecting and expanding access to nature to create a healthier, climate-ready province. And we have the leadership with a fantastic and diverse set of candidates across the province to make it happen. So we're heading into the final 10 days of this campaign. And I'm looking forward to continue to work hard to earn people's trust and earn Ontarians' vote, and highlight how Greens will build the connected, caring, climate-ready province Ontarians want. This is the Green moment. Momentum is building across the province. We're running our biggest campaign ever with strong candidates like Matt Richter and Perry Sound-Muskoka and Diane Sachs and University Rosedale, Laura Campbell and Dufferin Caledon, Abhijit Mane and Beaches East York, and so many other fantastic Green candidates across the province. And now I'd like to introduce the leader of the PEI Greens, Peter Bevan-Baker. Peter and the PEI Greens are such a fantastic example of what strong Green leadership can do. In PEI, the Greens hold the position of the official opposition and have passed 18 bills in opposition, including establishing the strongest greenhouse gas emission targets in the country, which incorporates a monitoring mechanism to ensure PEI actually meets its climate obligations. They've also brought forward and passed a bill to eliminate poverty on the island and have completely changed the decorum in the legislature, making it vastly less partisan and more collaborative. So in Ontario, Greens have punched well above our weight with one MPP, standing up for nature and climate action and holding Doug Ford accountable on his destructive environmental record. Imagine what more Green MPPs can do to improve people's lives. And we've learned so much in how to do this from the PEI Greens. So Peter, thank you for joining us.
Oh, Mike, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here for the last few days. And I want to start by congratulating you for your inspiring leadership. And of course, highlighted by the leaders' debate last week. Hard to imagine that was actually a week ago. But also for your whole team. And you mentioned a couple of the campaigns which are going on. I was up in Parry Sound, Muskoka, and met with Matt Richter there, did some doors with him and his family and the wonderful team. And they are just running the most extraordinary, inspiring, active, vigorous campaign up there. I also stopped in, you also mentioned Laura Campbell in Dufferin Caledon, who is also doing a brilliant job there. I met with Danielle Valaquette, with Ryan Cora. I've been in Metro Toronto for the last couple of days. Yesterday, I campaigned with Diane Sachs. Oh my goodness, trying to keep up with her. She is an absolute force of nature, force for nature, of course, as well. And with Abhijit Mane as well. So I have seen the quality of the candidates and the professionalism of the campaign that you're running here. And I am so, so impressed. And of course, you've been quite frank, Mike, in being clear that Greens do not expect to form government following this election. And when I go around the province, and perhaps I've seen more of the province in the last 48 hours than I did during the 14 years I lived here, I can see that the campaign here is so far ahead of what it was when I used to run in Leeds Grenville. But it looks like it's still an election cycle, or maybe two election cycles behind where we are in Prince Edward Island, where we formed the official opposition in the last general election in 2019. And having the first member in the House demonstrates, particularly a member like yourself, Mike, who can speak so eloquently and clearly and concisely on all the issues, whether that is healthcare or education or economic development or housing or whatever the issue is. If you have a member in the House who can show the citizenry of the province that you are a mature party capable of governing and with innovative and practical ideas on all of the issues, that's the first step, and you've done that. It was having the second member in our House, which was really the pivot moment for us, where the citizens looked at the Green Party and PEI and said, well, that wasn't just a one-off flash in the pan related to a particular individual, but this is an organization which has its stuff together, an organization which is capable and worthy of our vote, and something that we can feel comfortable and confident in. And it was at that moment where a confluence of things brought together the opportunity for us, and you have to be ready for it as well, to form official opposition and to occupy 8 seats in our legislature of 27. And we showed and have showed, I would say, in the last almost 3.5 years that we've been in the legislature as official opposition, that politics can be done differently, that politics with Greens in the House means less fakery, it means more frankness, much less many less games and gamesmanship, and more goodwill and more honest, hard graft, and less of the political posturing and all of the partisanship that people have become so used to with their politicians, and more principled politics. And I believe that's what citizens everywhere want. And including here, of course, in Ontario, where I think people are just they're hungry for better politicians, they're hungry for better politics. And I think that they are ready to vote for that. I absolutely see in all of the campaigns that I mentioned and all of the others that I have seen since I've been here for the last 3 days, that ability for the Green Party to capture the imagination of Ontarians who are looking for something better than they have and have had for such a long time. And you yourself, Mike, has shown with your presence in the House what one Green MLA can do to transform it. But just imagine having 2 or 4 or 6 friends to join you. I mean, it would be quite literally transformative in the same way that it has been in Prince Edward Island. So again, I congratulate you on what you've done. And I just, the level and the professionalism and the maturity of the campaign here has been nothing short of inspiring. I've had a wonderful time. And as with all Green campaigns, a hallmark of them is that people are having fun. There are no furrowed brows. There's no, it's just a place where people feel welcome and embraced. And we're working hard with good hearts and smart people everywhere. And I really wish you the best of luck for the remaining 10 days of this campaign, and hope that you will end up with a real caucus of Green MLAs. It will be great for you. It will be great for the province. So best of luck, Mike.
Thank you, Peter. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. We'll now open the floor to any questions. If you have a question, please use the raise hand function, or if that's not working, just message in the chat and I will call on you. So it looks like first up, we have a question from Alan Hale. Alan, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, gentlemen. Mike, I was just hoping you could talk a bit more what you've got going on in Parry Sound, Muskoka. You've been spending a lot of time there, but this is a PC stronghold. At least that's how it seems. Like realistically, how close? What are your chances of winning this, and why do you think so?
Well, Alan, I'll just say that we have incredible momentum in Parry Sound, Muskoka. It feels a lot like Guelph felt in 2018. And I can tell you a lot of people said Guelph was a Liberal stronghold and the Greens could never get elected until a Green was elected. So Matt Richter's, where he finished in the 2018 election was almost exactly where I finished in Guelph in the 2014 election. And just through people power. And that's really what fuels Green campaigns, is people power. And just the enthusiasm and the energy that Peter described. That's what we have in Parry Sound, Muskoka right now. And we're really excited about the opportunity to win that seat, because I know the people of Parry Sound, Muskoka, they want to live in a riding that has housing that's affordable for the average person, that protects the nature that is so vital to the prosperity of the riding, the economy of the riding, and just the quality of life for people in Parry Sound, Muskoka. And then finally, I believe people in Parry Sound, Muskoka want a new way of doing politics that the Ontario Greens offer, by being just straightforward about the investments we would make, especially in expanding healthcare capacity for the riding and for the province. And we're just going to continue to keep building on the momentum we have over the next 10 days.
Thank you. I have a question for Peter. Actually, side note, I'm actually from Prince Edward Island myself. One islander to another. So PEI politics has always sort of been very divided between the Liberals and the PCs, and it is interesting that the Greens like have risen to official parties or official opposition, but you didn't really have a strong NDP in the in PEI that you needed to like take votes away from. We have a very established NDP here, which is the official opposition for at least for the moment. Does that change the calculus for Ontario Greens that they have to may have to like leapfrog over over another progressive party that claims to want to do stuff on the environment? Like, how does having a a stronger NDP here change what they need to do?
That's a really great question, Alan. And every political environment is unique. And absolutely on Prince Edward Island, the NDP, for whatever reason, has never been a prominent force in politics. But the other two teams were so dominant that the idea that any party, Green or otherwise, could actually dent or break its way into that fortress of red and blue brick was almost unthinkable. So yes, the NDP was not and is not a strong force on Prince Edward Island. But I like to think of the Greens not so much as taking votes away from people, but attracting votes from every corner of the political spectrum. And Mike was talking a little moment ago about Parry Sound Muskoka and the fact that it has been a blue stronghold for decades. But every seat that we took in the Prince Edward Island legislature was a stronghold for one or other of those parties for equally long. 6 of our 8 MLAs took away seats from sitting cabinet ministers. So when people are ready to vote for something different and something better and something inspirational, I think those votes will come from everywhere and anywhere. So yes, I understand, of course, that the NDP is an established force here, but I think they have also disappointed many people, not just when it comes to environmental policy, but in other areas as well. And I think as long as Mike and the team here remain true to the Green values and the principles that guide us, there are absolutely the same opportunities here in Ontario for the Greens to make the gains that we did in Prince Edward Island, albeit in, of course, a different political environment.
Thank you, Alan. Anything else?
I don't want to hog all the time.
Okay, we can come back to you if you have more questions after. Next up, we have Jessica Smith from the Canadian Press. Jessica, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Schreiner. If you were elected, would you freeze tuition, and if so, by how much?
Yeah, so our primary focus right now when it comes to making post-secondary education affordable is to restore the cuts that the Ford government brought in to the Ontario Student Assistance Program, convert the current loans to grants, and freeze tuition rates and eliminate student debt, because we recognize that we have to make significant investments in our post-secondary institutions. Ontario has the highest per capita tuition rates in the country and the lowest per capita funding for our post-secondary sector. So we both need to increase investments in colleges and universities to continue to offer the world-class education that we offer. And we also have to take steps to make it affordable for students. And we believe our platform has achieved the right balance to deliver on that.
And can you elaborate a little bit more on the sectors you would target with freezing tuition?
All sectors. I mean, we need to make sure that both colleges and universities are affordable. And we need to make sure that the Ontario Student Assistance Program is designed in a way that would make university and college affordable, especially for low and middle income students. We have, in addition to the changes to the OSAP program, we have recognized that we have labor shortages, particularly in the areas where we have the highest growth markets in the new climate economy, particularly in the trades, to deliver on our commitments to retrofit homes, to help people save money by saving energy, reduce climate pollution, to roll out the level of investment we need in ramping up renewable energy and storage. So we have made a commitment to offering free tuition for 60,000 young people to access new climate economy jobs with a guaranteed apprenticeship, employment through an apprenticeship, so that we can address the labor force shortages we're facing in Ontario, being able to, one, meet our climate obligations, but two, take advantage of the emerging markets in the low carbon economy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Next up, we have Steve Bacon from TVO. Steve, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thanks very much. Peter, I just wanted to pick up on Alan's question and ask you, something clearly was different in Prince Edward Island that allowed you to make the breakthrough that you did. I wonder if you could go into some detail about what that was and whether you see any evidence that it exists in Ontario.
Hi, Steve. Nice to chat with you again. Yeah, it was a culmination and a coming together of a number of factors. I mean, this is just my own assessment. Take it for what it is, Steve. We had a third-term government looking for a fourth term, and that's always a tough thing to do because you've been in power for a long time. You've disappointed people, and I think I can say quite frankly, an uninspiring premier at the time. We had the natural official opposition who would be expecting to form power, the progressive conservatives, in a little bit of internal disarray. The absence of the NDP, as Alan pointed out earlier, was another factor. And I think at that time, a disillusionment of the citizenry with conventional politics and uninspiring politicians generally. And that was being displayed around the world by people voting for Donald Trump, for example, in the US, something that didn't look or sound very conventional. That sort of shift would never happen on Prince Edward Island. That's just it's not the nature, it's not the character of the place. So I think when people went looking for something different, something that would inspire them, we had that opportunity to be in the House for 4 years prior to the last general election. People were comfortable with who we were. We presented a very strong platform, again, demonstrating that Greens have practical and innovative and strong policies across the spectrum. And it was just the right time. We also had a fantastic group of candidates. So when I look at the situation here in Ontario, obviously different from what it was back in 2019 in Prince Edward Island, but I see a lot of commonalities. I see an inspiring leader. I see wonderful candidates across the province. I see an electorate which is dismayed and disillusioned with conventional politics. But I don't quite see yet in Ontario the Greens in a position where there's a comfort level with the electorate that they are going to form government. I don't see that. And I'm sure Mike would concur with that. But that does not mean that in pockets around the province, we have opportunities to make gains. And again, I go back to Parry Sound, Muskoka and Matt's campaign up there. I was out with him and his son on Friday night, and his son got 7 lawn signs, I think, on people's properties. And we went to an area where there was an overwhelming conservative vote, a poll where the PCs won it by a large margin. And the doors that I knocked on, and this is all obviously anecdotal, but I got huge response from Matt in that area. Of course, he's run there many times before, and we don't have an incumbent PC. So I think that next step for the provincial party is absolutely there this time around. And I expect to see other Greens elected. I don't expect to see an official opposition or a Green government, but you cannot leapfrog these steps to a place where you will be vying for actually governing the province. You have to go through this process. And we did it on Prince Edward Island over a period of 10 or 15 years of building the party. And I absolutely see the same trajectory here. Again, I don't expect to see an official opposition coming out of this election, but I do expect to see both a greater support for the party. Mike has created such great credibility and respect for the Green Party of Ontario, and a couple more Greens in the House who would just build on that. So yes, I do see parallels, but the timing and again, the political environment is unique, but I think there's a tremendous opportunity here this time for people to vote Green, to comfortably vote Green, and to know that that vote will not be wasted.
Thank you for that. And forgive me, Mike, I tuned up late for this, so if you've addressed this already, I apologize. But A, how are you feeling? And B, when do you expect to get back on the hustings?
Yeah, Steve, I feel fine. Luckily, my symptoms have been very mild. throughout the entire time I've had COVID. So as you probably noted, I've been able to continue campaigning from home, doing virtual news conferences and a bunch of online events, as well as making a lot of phone calls over the last few days. And so we expect that I will be back out campaigning sometime this week. We haven't officially determined what day yet, but like I've been saying, we will put public health and safety first in making the determination when I can resume in-person campaigning again.
Thanks to both of you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Steve.
Any other questions, Alan? I know you might have had something more.
Oh yeah, I got another one for Peter, I guess, since he's here. So you were talking about how getting that second seat is important for showing people that this isn't just a flash in the pan, that this is something that is staying power. Do you think if the Greens do win Perry Sound Muskoka, does that prove that point, or is the situation in that riding with the Liberal candidate being knocked out, does that sort of maintain the perception of flukiness to the win, or do details like that really matter?
I think ultimately what will matter is when and if Matt sits in the legislature next to Mike, Ontarians are given the opportunity to watch two Green members who can be knowledgeable, articulate, and well-versed on all of the topics and all of the issues that come forward. So I think the minutiae of individual campaigns, and again, that's from riding to riding, that's going to vary. And that's all. It's not that it's not important. Of course it is. There are opportunities that come forward, but you have to be ready to grasp those opportunities. You have to demonstrate to enough of the citizenry in that riding that you are worthy of their vote. So regardless of the circumstances, I think what will be critical and what will be transformative is having those multiple voices. And by the way, I don't think Matt Richter is the only one with a chance to win. Diane Sachs is just, as I said earlier, I can't keep up with her. And the vigor on the doors, and she's been campaigning full time since October of last year. I think there are other opportunities around this province for people to vote Green and to consider that vote a vote that will put potentially a Green member in a seat in the legislature in Queen's Park. So yeah, I think the important thing will be that this will be the next step for a party that is establishing itself both in the legislature and in the minds of Ontarians as a true mature political party worthy of governing this province. And yes, whether Matt gets there this time or somebody else or 2 or 4 members, I think it's the presence in the House which will make a difference. And I'm confident that you will see more Green members in the House following the election on June 2nd.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? If not, I'll send it back to you, Mike.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. And Peter, thank you so much for spending your holiday weekend in Ontario, supporting the Ontario Greens and just the fantastic candidates we have on the ground. We know we have 10 days to continue to build on the momentum we have. And I know the people of Ontario, they want new solutions to old problems. People want a caring, connected, climate-ready province. And that's exactly the leadership all 124 Green candidates across the province are providing. And we're going to continue to work hard to earn people's trust and earn their vote on June 2nd. Thank you all for joining us, and a special thank you to Peter.
Thank you, Mike. Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.